Good morning, everyone. This is Jeffy Kennedy, author of Epic Fantasy Romance. I'm here with my first cup of coffee. The sheer sensual pleasure. Today is, say it with me, everyone, Friday, September 16th. Yeah, so it's Good Friday. Not the Good Friday. You know, my stepdad, the former Catholic priest, used to say that. He would say, it's a Good Friday, but not Good Friday. It's Catholic jokes. So, yeah, end of the week. It's been a pretty busy week for me. Turned around and started the revision on Shadow Wizard yesterday. Corrine has said nothing about it so far. Could be she's busy. Could be she hates it. We don't know. She might be busy. I think she's doing like stuff for her day job. I think it's funny because I am also her day job, but I'm like not the day job. Yeah, so I made it through like 50 pages yesterday. And not as many as I wanted, but it's fine. I think it's fine. Haven't decided if I'm going to work on it this weekend. I might. Depends on if I'm feeling the need, the burn. Which way is it? I guess that's something that you develop over time as a writer. It's like, when do you need to hold your feet to the fire, and when do you need to give yourself some time to relax? I've still got a week, more than a week, before I have to turn it in for formatting. So, but so far it's pretty clean. It's not bad. And something I thought I was going to weave in, I realized I don't have to weave in. So, yeah, so far I think it's pretty good. So this weekend I really need to deal with this chair. Then you all won't have to listen to me bitch about it anymore. Yeah, so, oh, I don't even have the spreadsheet up yet. I won't give you any stats. Yeah, I added just a few words yesterday, not many. But yeah, I was a little tired. I was a little brain tired. Ended up having a nap, something I don't often do. And then I did like a 3-hour meeting with the SIFWA board in the afternoon, where we got a bunch of stuff handled, so that was good. Yeah. And do I have anything to say to you all now? I don't know. Some things on my mind I can't talk about, which I know is always hard. I wish I could just tell you all absolutely everything. I absolutely would, because I'm not much of one for keeping secrets, even though I do it. So a couple of you were asking about the Secret Movie Project, which is probably going to be its nickname, even though it's a bad nickname. Not all nicknames are perfect. And no, you won't see it anytime soon, because Agent Sarah wants this one. I am going to write the whole book. Sorry, mosquito. Because, first of all, and this is probably useful information for those of you who actually listen to this podcast for industry advice, as opposed to me babbling about grapes in my patio chairs. Yeah, Agent Sarah Younger at Nancy Yost Literary Agency, for those who don't know, says that she's having a much better time selling complete manuscripts these days, as opposed to on spec, which is, in one sense, sucks for the author. Because for me, one of the perks of having an agent, of being at this point in my career, is that I like being able to write 50 pages of something and give a vague pitch, or at least I used to be able to do that, and sell it on those merits. But publishing has changed enough, trad publishing has changed enough that it's that they want to see the whole thing. They want to know how it's going to turn out. I don't even know why. I'm not sure I understand the reasoning. Uh, One of my friends suggested, and I thought this was a very interesting theory, is that it's because the young editors, the up and coming editors, the ones who are buying stuff these days, are so much less experienced that they don't have the story sense, the faculty to see where the story is going to go. So, whereas a very, very experienced editor, you could have shown them 10 pages, 50 pages, and they would know. The younger editors don't, and so they have to see the whole thing. Um, because it certainly isn't to speed up the process. They're not going any faster. The advantage for me, however, is that if I write this draft, when I write this draft, and give it to Sarah, um, she can make tweaks on the whole thing if she has input. And then we can settle on a very circumscribed submission time, that, only 2 to 3 months, something like that. And then I take it back and self publish it. So that way my time isn't wasted. Some of you may recall that there was the thing that I was working on that was off genre for me, that Sarah was super excited about and took out on sub, and it just, and that's on spec, that's a partial, has not moved. And Sarah thinks it might still. She says she has a lot of projects that aren't moving. And, and she does make kind of hints about, well, it might do better if I wrote the whole thing. Reader, I am not writing that whole thing because here's my reasoning. If I wrote the whole thing, it would take a lot of time that for maybe no money, which Sarah fortunately understands. Not all agents do. And if I did take it back to self-publish it, I would have to do it under a pseudonym. I would have to create a whole new marketing thing, and I don't want to do that. It's not important enough to me. So that's my new resolve, and I may have discussed this before, but I've decided I'm no longer writing anything that I wouldn't immediately take out on my own. I wouldn't take out to self-publish. So yeah, the secret movie project, I would totally take that out and self-publish it. And if Trad doesn't want it or won't give me enough money for it, that's what I will do. But it might be a while before you see it, which is why I do kind of feel bad tantalizing you with it. But I do have my plan. I mentioned yesterday some. Soon as Shadow Wizard is done, I'm turning around to write Secret Movie Project. And in case you didn't listen before, the reason I'm calling it that is because it comes off of a movie, not because it's going to be a movie. It's from a classic movie. I'll give you that much hint. And no, you're never going to guess it. So it's not Casablanca. There's this like cadre of people who I really like, but like Walter John Williams and Connie Willis. Apparently at Taos Toolbox, which Walter John Williams runs, they have an enforced watching of Casablanca because they believe it's like the greatest movie of all time. And I've seen Casablanca, and it's like, okay. But I like happy endings. Yeah, we won't go into that rant again. So, I did have a point, didn't I? Oh, what am I doing? I'm anticipating that will be a fairly fast draft. Crossing fingers, knock on wood. I will get that worked out, and I'm not going to do. It doesn't have to be perfect because there might be a lot of editorial input. So I'm just going to get it in a decent place, get a complete draft, and pass it off. Then I will write the midwinter holiday novella, which hopefully will also go fast. So that I'm hoping that by the week after Thanksgiving, when I get to go on this writing retreat, which no is not the one that I went on before, also secret. This is totally different group of people, totally different location. But that week, I am hoping to start Rogue Familiar, which is going to be the sequel to Shadow Wizard. And I've already been making notes on it. I feel like I could turn around and start writing it today, really, is where I'm at with it. But other obligations, right? And it's funny, I do get to this point with writing books, right? Because for so long while I was writing Shadow Wizard, I kept wanting to stop and write Secret Movie Project because I had such a buzz about it. Now that I've finished Shadow Wizard, my mind is completely wrapped up in that. And so now I have to kind of get the buzz back on the other one. But I do feel like that's how it works. I remember asking writers that when I was a newbie, like what do you do when you get a buzz for something else? Do you keep going on the new project or do you write the buzzy one? And people always would tell me, they said, if the buzz is real, if it's solid, it'll wait, it'll save. And I do think that's true. Now, Dorinda and I have argued about this point in that I think that you don't necessarily need to make a lot of notes on stuff because it's there and it'll come back to you. And Dorinda gets very testy with me and says that no, that's my brain and not her brain, that her brain will completely lose things. So, I mean, everybody's different, right? Yeah, so that's going to carry me easily through the new year. Um, yeah, but I think I've mentioned I'm home for the next month or so, at least until World Fantasy Con, beginning of November. So yeah, need to start doing a few travel plans things, and yeah. So did I have? I feel like I started on a track of something that was interesting, industry stuff, selling full manuscripts. One of the outcomes of Worldcon, and Bubonicon too, having a lot of different conversations with people, is that pretty universally TradPub is not moving. There's very little going on, except for a few BIPOC grabs. There's just not a whole lot. I did see a very funny tweet from Joanne Harris, a wonderful author, who said that she had done this interview a while back and I think she referenced it, but I didn't click because I was being careful not to go down the rabbit hole, where she was talking about the demise of the middlest author, which is me, which is most of us. And that the interviewer understood her to say the middlest author, like the middlest child, and thought that she had made up the word and focused, she said, rather uncomfortably on the fact that she had made up this word of a middlest author as opposed to mid-list author. So much condescension in the world. I had something that I was going to go down this path, and I was thinking, oh, it'll get me all the way through this podcast, and now I don't remember it. Yeah, the writing the full manuscript, deciding whether to self-publish stuff. One of the things about self-publishing is that while I don't think you have to adhere to the mythical 30-day or 60-day release schedule, it does require regular releases. And so it's one of the difficulties of being hybrid is if you take time away to write stuff that then goes and sits with trad publishing on endless submission, that can really take away from that. So, but I do think that it's worthwhile doing. And I know what I was going to talk about. Yeah. So one of the things that came out of the Department of Justice trial with Penguin Random House acquiring Simon and Schuster. I think I have that in the right order. Not being a financial type, I don't always keep super close track of those things. But I know I talked about this a little bit before, that the publisher's main defense, rather puzzling to many people, was to convince the Department of Justice that this wasn't going to be a terrible financial coup. It would not be a monopsony. Learned a word there, because they basically don't know what they're doing and that it's all a crapshoot, which is an interesting defense. But one of the details that came out was that half, like around half, I think some people said over half. I didn't see the original remark data point, but let's just say half of traditionally published books never sell more than a dozen copies. And so this was passed around where all these self-publishers were like, oh, I feel so much better about my 100 copies and all this. And so several people had to explain that they're talking about print, which is befuddling to people. And I understand why it's befuddling. But when traditional publishing talks about sales, they always, always, always mean print, because they don't count ebook sales. And I know it's counterintuitive. I know it makes no sense, but I promise you it's true. They reference BookScan, which is BookScan tracks what books are sold in the bookstores, brick and mortar stores, paper books. BookScan does not count ebooks. And so I can tell you that, like Grace Draven and I have compared our numbers, and both of us, she sells way better than I do. She has a bigger platform. But for both of us, ebook sales, even for our trad published books, are 95% of our sales. And it shows on our royalty statements. We get, here are the ebook sales, here's the print sales, and we get paid for the ebook sales. We actually get paid a bigger percentage for each ebook sale than we do for the trad book sales, which means that the publisher makes less money for each print sale. So that's part of it. But for both of us, 95% of our sales, ebook, not print. And which means that the publisher views us as not selling well. And, print sales are fraught. There are fewer bookstores. There's the whole return thing, that they send books out to the bookstores. If the bookstores don't sell them, they can return them. So in some quarters, or like St. Martin's pays me every 6 months, sometimes my print sales are negative because of the returns, right? Ebook sales, my friend, are never in the negative, but trad publishing still doesn't count them. And Agent Sarah went to a great deal of trouble once to explain it to me. And I'm going to simplify, but it's because, first of all, the publisher gets a bigger cut. They don't have to pay the author as much. And in that bigger cut, they have a much, much wider profit margin on print books. So, for instance, on a $24.99 hardback, the publisher is going to make $10 or $12 pure profit. That's on top of paying the bookseller's cut, the paying overhead and so forth. And they get a much, much smaller amount, like $1 or $2 on each ebook. So you'd think that they would care about the volume of ebook sales, but they actually don't. Because what they want are those big print book sellers. And that's why the middlest author is disappearing, because they want the blockbusters. And I suppose one question I always have, this is me having written The Mark of the Tala was originally called The Middle Princess, because it was like all the stories are about the eldest daughter and the youngest daughter. What about the middlest daughter? There's the blockbusters, there's the middlest authors. Well, then what's the third category, right? And I suppose those are just the people who never sell more than a dozen copies. And they are the unnameable. That ended on a dour note. But it's the way of things. And, thank goodness that we have access to self publishing because we love ebook sales and self publishing, don't we? And thank you all out there, you readers, for buying and supporting. Oh, final note on Dark Wizard. I'll give a full rundown on Monday of the being free and the BookBub featured deal. But another over 1,000 copies downloaded yesterday. So I think I'm up around 13 or 14,000 copies. And looking at sales of books 2 and 3, the sales of those 2 books this week have already paid for the BookBub featured deal. So I figure I'm coming out ahead now. And lots more pre-orders for Shadow Wizard. Thank you all. Speaking of which, I'm going to get in there and work on it. I hope you all have a great Friday. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. Enjoy the beautiful autumn weather. Savor the good things, right? You all take care. Bye-bye.